Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
Hey, welcome back to the Ages of Rock podcast. It's Dennis, minus Dennis, because Dennis isn't here today. Alan and Bill and our special guest, Rik Fox. We're going to chat about Rockin' Pod, how that thing went, and then whatever else Rick's got up his sleeve, man.
I got no sleeves.
He's got, we're in trouble.
Everything's exposed. Rockin' Pod. It was fun. It was my first time there. I'm no longer a Rockin' Pod virgin. I broke my Rockin' Pod cherry. So
it's about damn time, man.
Yeah. Well, I asked a few times about the possibility of being a participant, and it's a matter of getting all the logistics lined up and everything, and so finally I was granted the boon, and they said, "Yeah, you're a guest. Come on in." So
cool.
It was fun. It was great. I'd like to do it again.
Awesome. I thought it was really. I like the way they did this year, where they had all the guests had like a kind of a, I don't know, a chaperone kind of thing that kind of made sure they got to where they were supposed to be, and handler.
I didn't have one of those.
Oh, you didn't have one of those? Uh-oh.
I didn't rate. I wasn't up to that level yet. Ron Keel gets one of those. I don't get one of those.
Ron Keel gets one of those because, it's Ron. You never know what's going to happen with Ron.
Well, he's the king of the Rockin' Pod. So
I think he might have been at every one of them so far. Has he been at every one of them?
They give you on the back of your artist laminate, there's like a little schedule, which is really, it was a nice courteous touch. And you just look at the back to kind of refresh yourself where you're supposed to go and what time and whatnot. So then, I'm like looking at it and I go, okay, where's the next one? Where's the next one? Where's the next, like that. And I was actually late for my last one. I want to apologize to the hosts who were waiting for me. I read a little bit over with one of my other Rockin' Pod hosts. And it's just so much to talk about, and we get involved in these convoluted stories, and each and every one of them's fun. But then you start to lose track of time, and there's nobody standing next to me going, "Hey, Rick, you're up for the next one."
Let's go, buddy.
Yeah. It was fun, and the jam beforehand, the pre-show show was awesome. Ron and I got up there. We did some Steeler and Keel songs like that, and Cole Gin, we did a Kiss song.
Yep.
No, the funny thing about that is when Ron was a guest at my Kiss Expo back in 2004, my Unmasked band did Cole Gin, and Ron got up and sang it. So I told all the guys around, he's going to do Cole Gin. Sure enough, he did.
And we got some video of it, so that was nice.
That's really cool.
Nice. Cool. Do you see him very often or get together very often?
Does who?
Ron. Do you get with Ron?
Ron is the busiest guy in rock and roll. He's the hardest working man in show business. So we rarely get to see each other. So when we do, it's a lot of fun and great to be together. But he's got the Ron Keel band, and he's got when he does Keel, there's that. It gets confusing sometimes to connect the dots. But there's Keel, there's the Ron Keel band, and there's the Steeler project. So there's all these different things. And then Ron told me at the podcast that there's plans to do up the road to record some new Steeler material, which is very exciting, So say, man, just be ready. We're going to give you the call, and you're going to be flown in, and you're going to be treated good, and we're going to record, and we're going to kick ass, and it's going to be Steeler songs. And all right, let me know, And I believe it's Mitch Perry will be again on guitar, which is great, and Dwayne Miller will come in on drums. And I don't know what the material is yet. I imagine he's going to send me some of the demo stuff when he's ready, so I can start, getting ready to brush up on it. And then he'll let me know when it's time to record. We'll go in and ramp some new kick-ass Steeler songs.
Cool. We need some new music like that. That's for sure. There's been a lot of, they keep saying rock's dead. And it's like we keep finding all this cool stuff. I mean, there's stuff you just got to go look for it a little bit. Some people are more lazy than others, but not on the radio. Can't find any of that stuff on the radio. I don't play that stuff, which is bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, though.
Yeah.
For sure. What else you been working on? Anything?
Well, like you said, we just moved to Missouri, so it's pretty much been mostly working around the house and fixing up stuff and working on the property and fixing, it's mending fences, things like that. It didn't come 100% turnkey, so there's a lot of work I got to do, physical stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of. But then again, it's got to get done. So, and mundane stuff, cutting the grass and like that. We just had the tree trimmers out trimming trees away from the house because they were, hanging over, touching the roof, like that, and just trying to catch up with regular life,
If you get bored, I'm doing some tiling in my kitchen. I could use a hand.
One. That's the other. And here's them together.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. It's just there's just little things here and there that I look at and I go, they just don't have the same building codes like they do in California. The regulations certainly are not the same, in Missouri. So where in California things have to be like super, cut and dry, and in Missouri they're a little bit more lax on some things. They don't put such a high priority on the same type of Schedule 40 this and how things are built. So I got to go back and finish up whatever they left undone. So
yeah, not a lot of earthquakes in Missouri.
No, but there's the tornado. Luckily, we're away from Tornado Alley, but we still get some pretty heavy thunderstorms here.
It gets a little crazy, that's for sure.
We've had some hail already and some huge thunderstorms. My wife and I were driving up to Springfield the other day on the highway through a storm, and it was like, so the flash of lightning was like not off in the distance. It was right around us, and you count how many 1,000 to 1,000 till you hear the thunder. It was like right away. We were like right in the center under the core of the storm, and even though I'm driving, the road still shook.
Oh gosh,
that's big of a boom. It's like a howitzer.
Yeah, no. Holy crap.
Boom.
I wanted to ask you about that though. I saw that, doing a little research. I saw that you were in the California Military Reserve.
Yeah, State Military Reserve. Yeah. From 1995 until 2000.
Cool.
So it was it was an electronics communications unit. And if there's we're kind of like the guys that fill the hole when the front line needs to be is called on, when the main guys have to go up and take care of this. We're like the shortstop. We step into their empty spot and fill the gap and give support like that. But we've worked with the National Guard and things like that, and did emergency management. That was the office we worked out of was the Office of Emergency Services in Los Alamitos. So
nice. How many years did you do that?
5. Well, 95 to 2000.
Oh.
But they only credited me for 4 years. There's the hand hijacking the camera. Anyway, it was 5 years. I went in as an E4 corporal, came out as E4. I was going for my sergeant, my E5 stripe, and they wanted a lot more of a commitment at that point. I was working in the film industry, and if you're in the film industry and you take off from a film, your job's gone. Goodbye. There's always somebody else ready to step in your shoes, take your job. So, and we were like, we're on a voluntary basis. So I can't just, so I wasn't being paid, and I couldn't take 2 weeks off to go up to Camp Roberts and for my sergeant stripe. And I was 5 years, and I'm like, you know what, it's not fun anymore. I think I'll bow out. Thanks guys. Like that. So, but we're still members of CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Teams. And that's under FEMA and under DHS. So all the agencies are starting to kind of like interlock, work with each other. So
that's about time, right?
Yeah. So we're first responders.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate that for sure.
Welcome.
I know Alan has served.
Yep. 6 years, 6 months, and 14 days, but who's counting?
And what branch?
The Air Force.
Air Force. Oh, okay. Fly high.
I never flew in a military craft.
You're in the Air Force and you never flew?
I didn't say I never flew. I said I never flew in a military craft.
Yeah, military craft.
Well,
Okay.
to be more specific, I never flew in an American military aircraft. When I was in
That narrows
Germany,
it
I
down.
did ride in a British helicopter once,
Oh, that narrows it down.
but all my other flights were commercial.
Yeah.
How does that work out? That's kind of weird.
You want to fly military, get in the Army. I don't know.
Well, my speaking of Air Force, my favorite plane, and I guess a lot of people, is the A-10, the Warthog.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
they make neat noises.
yeah. Well, I also love the stuff that we don't know that's out there that they're working on.
Yeah, there's always something. There's always some secret thing going on, right?
Well, there's the TR-3B, the Manta right now, the triangle shaped craft.
Yeah.
The pulse drive.
Crazy. It's insane. Yeah, I have a son that's in well, he just signed his commitment. He's at the military academy in West Point. So he's signed himself up for finishing college and then going for 5 years at least, and probably more, because he wants to fly. Actually, I think he's been talking about trying to be a helicopter pilot. So like his mom's really happy about that. He's like, well, it's that or field artillery, Mom. And I'm like,
there's a little bit of trivia history for you for those who don't know about West Point. Polish history. General Kosciuszko built the fortifications on West Point, and when the British were coming up the river to attack, he had the brains to lay chains just under the water level, and all the British ships hit the chains. They were stuck. They were dead in the water.
Yeah.
So,
those chains are actually at West Point. They're at Trophy Point. So you can go, and they have the chains that are there. They actually guard the flag that's there and stuff like that. So it's really pretty cool.
A lot of people don't know. Well, my Polish history, I have to know that. So
nice. Yeah, we have Polish. We have my wife is Polish in her family. So
all right, good.
Yep.
That's where the Wing Hussar, Wing Knight comes from.
Gotcha.
You said something earlier about being the emergency response team. Are you currently an EMT still?
It's not an EMT. What happened was we were trained by LA County Fire in emergency services, which is it's some medical and first aid, search and rescue, fire suppression. They do have some stuff that dips into anti-terrorism like that. So we're not paid. We're civilian volunteers. So it's on that kind of a basis. Again, it's when the agencies are busy and they step up to the front to do their deed, somebody has to step in support of them, and that's where we come in. So I'm not really a fully trained EMT per se, but we have taken first aid courses.
Gotcha.
And triage, things like that,
Makes sense. Let's talk some music, man. So what do you are you, is that your
the same thing?
Go there, man. Go, Alan.
Speaking of music, you talked about you guys were going to do some Steeler stuff. Talk a little bit about your history with Steeler.
Okay, so that comes after I made my exit from WASP in summer of '82, and I was like a stranger in a strange land, just like the book. I mean, from New York landing in LA, I was like, for all intents and purposes, I could have been on another planet, and I was. The mentality's different, the people are different. I just really didn't. I felt so out of place, even though it was a rock and roll town, just starting to bubble. I still kind of felt out of place. My rhythm and the rhythm of people in LA, it's always been a love-hate kind of sometimes an abrasive relationship, because I don't play the game the way the California people do, and that sometimes upsets people, and then too fucking bad. But so I was networking. I was trying to because I was cut off. I didn't know anybody. I was trying to network and meet people, and I didn't have a way to get back to New York, so I might as well just stick it out and see what happens. But by chance in LA, and I jammed with Hellion. I auditioned for the Greg Leon Invasion. I auditioned for Rat in Stephen Piercy's grandmother's garage. and just trying to get my name out and around. And I put an ad in. I was jamming with Hellion a little bit, off and on, and I put an ad in Music Connection magazine. And Ron Keel saw it, contacted me, and said, "I saw your ad, and bassist, and it was involved. Have some background with Kiss and with Thor and what any other bands out of New York, because we didn't have internet, so it's all word of mouth." And he says, "Come and meet me." Now the thing is, I had just seen Steeler a couple of weeks before that at the Roxy. I was hanging out with Eric Carr, and we were watching Steeler, and they were really good. They were musically, they were great. Ron was screaming his head off. I said, that guy's going to be a rock star. The other guys in the band were good musicians. They didn't have the same kind of show presence, stage presence that Ron did. It was a little bit different. Wasn't as out over the top as Ron's was by comparison. But like I said, good musicians. I just had the opportunity to meet the original guitarist and drummer of Steeler at the Rockin' Pod event. And so Ron contacts me. I go to meet him. I go to what was called the Steeler Mansion, which is a joke because anybody that knows what it was just 3 gutted storefronts. It was infested with roaches. So to say a Steeler Mansion is kind of an inside joke. And I walk in and I go, well, where's the gear? Because Steeler was self-contained. They had a truck, they had lights, they had a PA, they had amps, everything. They were like a show band. Ron says it's all gone. When he goes, I fired the band, and all the gear, everything went with it. And I went, wow, that's kind of a big leap of faith. You guys are one of the top bands in LA. He says, well, the idea is to stay one of the top bands in LA, and that's why I'm contacting you. I heard about you, I heard about your name, and I always seem to be replacing other bass players because there's something I bring to the table, I guess, visually. I don't know. It's worked for me and it's worked against me. So it's kind of a weird conundrum. But we talked, and he gave me a cassette tape, and he said, "Here's the songs. I want you to learn these songs. No promises. Go home, learn these songs, come back, and we'll take it from there." And I said, "All right." It wasn't rocket science. It wasn't Rush. It wasn't Yes or anything. It was just straight ahead, straight chord rock and roll. So I learned the songs. I came back. We sat down one-on-one. It was, like I said, it was no band. Just Ron and I just jammed one-on-one. And up to where he was satisfied with that, and so it's like, okay, so the stories I heard about, because you have the look and you got the hair, it's always the hair. Rik Fox, the hair. Guy looks like a rock star. He goes, well, that's what I want in the band. I want guys that look like rock stars. I went, all right, well, no problem there. He says, but I want to see if there's something musical behind the look. Well, we sat down and proved that. A few weeks later, the drummer came back from Texas. The new drummer was Mark Edwards. And then we started to rehearse 3-piece like that. And so I wasn't like officially in the band. I guess it was like an extended audition, We're just going over the songs. We rehearsed. This was like late summer, early fall. So, but suffice to say, it was my birthday. It was December 28th, 1982. We were at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And Ron looks over at me and he goes, "Hey man, congratulations. You're officially in Steeler." So I was like, wow, on my birthday, what a great birthday present. So I was officially a member of Steeler by my birthday, December 28th, 1982. 7 months or so from being exiled out of WASP. So I was lucky. I got a chance to be on the map. And in one of the top bands of LA like that. So we kept rehearsing that way until, Ron talked again with Mike Varney, and we got Yngwie, into the project. And Yngwie came in like almost a year to the day after I did. He came in around February 4th, 83. And there was some misunderstandings and some friction at the beginning. And some things needed to be clarified and explained, the way things work. And it got to a point where at one time at rehearsal, Yngwie, we stopped the song. Yngwie looks over at Ron. He goes, "Hey man, is there anything you could do to make these songs a little more interesting? Because they're really quite fucking boring." And I looked up at Mark on the drum major. He was looking down at me and like, did this new guy just say what we thought did? The new guy just insult the boss's songs? So within a couple of days, we started auditioning other guitar players while Yngwie was living there with us. So
that history with Yngwie started a long time ago. Then I think that's his MO, right?
that's his calling card.
That is his calling card. I'm special.
Landed.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Eventually he even got with the program. He's all right. He got sick and tired of hearing shit. Anybody less than him is shitty. So I'm tired of hearing shitty guitar players. Let's do this. I'll play the game. And in the meanwhile, he was off looking for other gigs while he was with Steeler, but we didn't know that until after the fact. So Steeler was nothing more than a springboard for him to get into the U.S. In retrospect.
Yeah.
But we got booked. So as soon as he came in, everything started to line up. We got booked. Our first show was at the Country Club. We were opening for Hughes Thrall. And I don't remember if Frankie Bonelli was on drums at that point, but that was a hell of a show, a hell of a debut show. It was packed. I think it was sold out. And that's where I made my LA debut.
So you'd been there a year in LA, a year by that time?
A little over a year.
A little over a year.
A year and a month.
Nice.
The first show was March 11th, 83.
Cool.
So, and all the Steeler fans that showed up were like, I like to say that they did that reaction like the French Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when he sees the Trojan wooden rabbit come rolling up, and he does that. Like look, the spanky alfalfa, the shock look. When we hit the stage, everybody's like, "That's not the same Steeler. Where did these guys come from?"
Sounds like it was a harder edged Steeler than the original, is what it sounds like, at least.
It was a lot of the same songs.
Yeah.
I mean, we presented it right in your face, cutthroat. No prisoners. We went for it, and everybody was blown away.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I thought that. Did you get to see Resist and Bite at the Rockin' Pod at the pre-party?
Yes, I missed them. I got there just after Ron did his acoustic thing. We were trying to find our way there from the hotel without getting lost. And it was getting dark, and people were jumping off the curbs in front of us in traffic. And we were like trying to, my wife's MapQuest on her cell phone drinks. It's an alcoholic thing. And it always gives us the wrong directions. So we went circling around trying to find this place, and having never been there, we didn't know what it looked like. So we finally found it by accident. And they're texting me going, "Rick, where are you? Rick, where are you? Ron's worrying. And we found it. We pulled up, and I got there just when Ron went off. So we missed Resist and Bite. Yeah, so I'm sorry.
No, I just was curious because it was like, I imagine for Steeler, as you were describing it, it just sounded a lot like what they experienced at that show, which was, just they got a great crowd reaction, which was phenomenal. Especially for being there. It was their third show, I think. It's amazing. I don't get that here, and I don't think Alan does either in Evansville. You don't get a lot of bands that are just really hitting it pretty hard and are just really great bands. You get bar bands that are guys playing covers, not doing original stuff. That's what I usually get anyway.
Yeah, I think we're also up against something I call the short attention span theater. It's so hard to. It's so hard to hold on, to get an audience and hold on to them because their attention's somewhere else in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can't imagine being an artist and standing there watching somebody be on their cell phone scrolling around while you're up there trying to entertain them and trying to, be there for them and be in the moment when, Yeah, I think. Did you see Rob Halford punt didn't Rob Halford punt a cell phone like a year and a half ago or something like that?
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, he was. I think it was Rob. He was. Somebody was trying to take a selfie or whatever, and he was behind him, and he's punted it out into the.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's like that adage that Gene Simmons said years ago, back in when they were starting out. If you're playing for 2 people or 20 or 200, you give it everything you got. You make believe every show is Madison Square Garden. At some point somebody will notice. You hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about WASP? I mean, that's a thing that comes up a lot, I think, in interviews and different things and your connection with them, but it was pretty short lived. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Unfortunately. Maybe fortunately, but unfortunately. Um, my phone number was passed to Blackie while I was still in New York by some people who were from California. They got my number and a picture and gave it to him. I didn't expect to actually hear from him. I never thought I would leave New York or anything like that would happen. And he called me and we started talking. And I said, well, send me a tape. I don't know what you sound like. And, he had a demo with some songs on it and pretty heavy stuff. I was playing in the Jersey cover circuit, the bar band circuit. So I didn't have any demos. I mean, I did some stuff I recorded with the E Walker band, but that's not my material, and it's nothing I can send to somebody else. I mean, you couldn't even. It wasn't really recorded at great quality, so I would be embarrassed to maybe send that. Yeah, it wasn't a really true showcase of what I can do because, like I said, it was somebody else's songs. But he convinced me to come to LA. So I don't know where he got the money from because he was broke. He was living hand to mouth. And paid my ticket, and I cut up the cushions on one of my couches to wrap around a bass amp and like that and bring it on the plane and my bass. And so I arrived, and he was asking me like, how tall are you? Because everybody in the band is really tall and it matters. And I said, well, what about the drummer? Does he sit taller than anybody else too? Or but Blackie was tall, Randy was tall, so, and I wore boots with heels on them. So and I just kind of we allowed jet lag to disappear for a couple of days before I actually did an actual audition. And so he took me to the Troubadour, and I met David Lee Roth, which is weird because I just seen Van Halen months earlier at the Palladium in New York. And then I met some of the guys, I think, from Crew and like that. The bar was packed. I had these leather gloves on I made. They were like rollerball gloves with the cone studs on them. And I walk up to the bar and everybody's like, gets out of the way, and they're like looking at me like this guy's dangerous or something. And then Blackie took me up to the Rainbow. So we get a table, and who comes in but David Lee Roth sits down at our table. It's like, this doesn't happen to the average person, So we just kind of relaxed for a couple of days and like that. And then we actually got to the rehearsal point. And it took me back to when I was watching Kiss in their loft, back when Ace first joined, even before Ace was in the band. You sit there and you're watching something that sounds like it's nothing you've ever heard before. You can't compare it to anything. There's no bar you can raise or lower. There's no yardstick you can measure this against because it doesn't sound like anything you've ever heard before. So watching WASP, or what it wasn't WASP at the time, it was called Sister. But to sit there and watch them go through the set, 5 songs, it was like me sitting in the loft watching Kiss. It's that kind of energy, and it was just something you couldn't wrap your head around to describe. It just was so different. And Blackie, of course, had the unusual singing voice. Nobody else sounded like him, like that. So they went through the set like twice, 5 songs, and I said, all right, come on up. And I plugged in, and it really wasn't that difficult. Again, it was, like 3-chord rock and roll stuff. The arrangements were interesting. Some of the bits and pieces of the songs reminded me of other songs I knew from the 70s. So I'm sure, Blackie might have borrowed bits and pieces from other things and made rearrangements around those. And like that. So it was actually, the audition process was like 2 days. It took them 2 days to figure it out. And after the second day, they went, all right, you got the gig, you're the bass player. So I was in. And then, so that was February, March. By the end of March, beginning of April, was when I did the thing where I was out on the courtyard outside Blackie's cottage. I was on the phone on a really long extension cord, and I was kicking over leaves, and I kicked over a leaf, and there was a hornet, and I stepped on it. And then I moved the leaf back again over again, and it wasn't completely dead. I just kind of crunched it, and it was still, the stinger was moving, and it reminded me of the old Green Hornet logo from the TV show in the 60s. So before this, Blackie had said that he wants to have something completely new name, new band, new image, new everything, and he's racking his head. He doesn't know what to come up with. This is his new puzzle. And I walked in the house and I said, I got an idea for a band name. And he's watching the Yankees game. He slumped down in the chair like this. And I said, he goes, what? And I said, WASP. I said, I just stepped on one outside. And I had the Stinger movie. I said, remember the Green Hornet logo? He goes, yeah. And he's thinking about it, He goes, that's a good idea. He goes, keep thinking like that. So that was that. 2 nights later at rehearsal, we have a band meeting after we're done playing, and he makes the announcement, we have a new band name. And what's that? They go, what's that? He goes, WASP. And Tony goes, WASP? Who names a band after a bug? And I said, the Beatles, the Scorpions.
The Beatles,
like
never
that.
heard of them. Don't know who they are.
Yeah. So, and Randy goes, well, I wanted to call the band Hellion. And I said, there already is a band up in Hollywood called Hellion. So, and Blackie goes, that's it. WASP it is. And he must have really given it some thought, and you'd have to agree that particular moment, the new band was born. So all of us are all the new 4 co-founding members, but here we are years later on the internet, and I catch all kinds of grief from his WASP fans over in Europe going, you were never in the band, like that. And we did a demo. We did a live 3-track demo, which I'm on. And we did a photo session. So if Blackie wasn't happy, why go to the trouble of having a photo session? So he calls Don Atkins up, who shot Motley Crue and their early pictures and other bands. And we did a photo session at Don's parents' house. And if you look at the pictures, these 3 guys look like criminals. And here's me looking like a Punky Meadows at an Angel. It's like hammer, saw, nails, milk. What's wrong with this picture? Maybe I don't know. I didn't have that rugged look, I didn't have that Kentucky road map face or something. No insult to Kentucky, but I don't know. It's 4 months down the road, he just stops talking to me like that, and he says, it's not working out. You're out of the band, and you just surrender all the photos that you have of the band. I'm like, what? Why? I'm in the band. Why can't I have he says, it's my band. They're my pictures. You can't have any of them. So wow. I went out, I surrendered the pictures. Then I got the negatives. I went out and made more pictures, and he got pissed off about that. But, I got a copy of the demo, transferred over to a cassette. And right from the master, the quality was excellent. You could hear the bass, you could hear everything. It sounded great. And there was a 6th song that I added some parts to. It was called Master of Disaster, that I wrote some parts in, 2nd verse and the breakdown before the solo. And that's all on the demo. Now, some months later, that demo was in a car where I was moving from one apartment to another, and that tape got stolen. The car got stolen. And everything that was in the back seat was gone. Albums, bands I'd worked for, that signed albums that I've worked for. Whatever was in the trunk was still in the trunk. What was in the back seat was gone, and that WASP tape was gone. Somebody must have known the value of that tape, because back in the 80s, we had tape traders, tape pirates. And everybody would make copies of tapes and trade them around the world. That tape went around the world so many times, by the time I had heard it again, the quality was awful. But what was on the front of it was a Xeroxed copy of the band photo that I reduced down. I was making my own version of a fantasized album cover. That's what it was, essentially. And I drew a WASP logo, and there's the picture, and it says, Blackie Lawless guitar, Randy Piper guitar, Rik Fox bass, Tony Richards drums. So my name was on that. That in its format was tape traded and pirated around the world. And here we are decades later, WASP fans have that tape, and they say, no, you were never in the band. I go, look at the picture, and it's argued. So I got interviewed by a WASP fan who did a book. His name is Darren Upton. He's out of the UK, over in England. And he wrote a book called A Sting in the Tail, Tale. It's an unauthorized WASP biography. And he interviewed me for like 3 hours. And he says, you represent a very important missing puzzle piece in the history of the origins of WASP. And we want to know your story. And I told him everything like that. And at that point, I couldn't get in touch with Don Atkins to get permission to use the band picture. So the frame of the book, the outer edge of the frame of the book, is just the headshots of all those various people who have either been in the band or worked with Blackie before and after was one called WASP. and he put the book out with my accounts and history of what I remember. What I'm telling you is in the book. And there are people who fight it and argue with it, but they don't argue with Darren. They argue with me about it. So I mean, it's to the point. He says some of the fans have come around and admitted, okay, they believe you. Those are the fans from like the first WASP album up to Crimson Idol. He says from Crimson Idol on, they're strictly Blackie Lawless fans who hate you. Why? We don't know. They just hate you. And you can't even joke about Blackie. You can't make any gags or anything humorous. They attack you, like angry ants. And it's just amazing that the kind of mesmerizing Svengali control he exerts over these fans, that, especially a lot of the women fans. I mean, they want to have his kids. It's really kind of weirdly twisted. They love him so much that there's nothing you can say that, you say the wrong thing and they attack you, like that. And it's okay for Chris Holmes to go on, do a documentary and go on and on and on about how Blackie screwed him over, which was true, and all the things he hates about Blackie, and nobody attacks Chris Holmes. They accept it, but they attack me. I don't know.
Weird.
So that's I was in WASP for like 4 months.
Music fans in general can just be overzealous. I mean, a good example, look at Peter Criss and Ace Frehley fans, when it comes to Kiss. I mean, Peter and Ace have both been out of the band again for damn near 20 years, and people are still butthurt about it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, but they're butthurt. They're angry because they want the original members back in. With WASP, a lot of these people believe that WASP originally, officially starts with Chris Holmes being in the band. To them, the first album, that's what they accept as the beginning of WASP, is that first album. They do not acknowledge anything before the first album with any other members. I mean, after me, Don Costa came in and did 1 or 2 shows, and then he got kicked out. And then, then Chris came in like that. It's,
kind of like being a drummer in Nirvana.
I don't know. These people, some of the fans are they're good and they're crazy, and they're good and they're crazy bad. It's just, you can't make everybody happy.
Oh, the passion, it's just amazing to watch people who are fans of a band just have those very cut and dry. You can't accept, anything other than this particular thing. To Alan's point and to your point, it's just, there's just no band. Normally, bands don't start with the same 4 people and they're the same 4 people forever. That just doesn't happen. I mean,
well, history is fraught with rock bands who change members before they take off and become famous. Nobody argues or debates it, except WASP.
Amazing.
And it, especially in LA, they make such a big deal of, you get fired. You got fired. You got something wrong with you because you got fired. Ronnie Dio got fired from Sabbath. David Lee Roth got fired from Van Halen. No shame in that. If you're good at what you do, there's no shame in being fired. That doesn't come down to music. It comes down to personalities. Bingo. But they always backpedal it, put a Band-Aid on it, and say, well, it was a musical thing. We didn't get along. Blah, 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 blah. That's a small portion of it. A lot of it has to do with chemistry. Make no mistake.
That's chemistry and ego, right? You have somebody in the band that feels like they're a little more important than everybody else, and when that ego starts getting eroded and they don't have that feeling of power anymore, then it becomes gloves off and here we go.
Well, something like that kind of happened with my first LA lineup of Sin. Now, Sin originally started in Jersey in the 70s, and then we played for several years doing the Jersey cover circuit. And then it kind of fizzled for a while. It went on the back burner. I came to LA. Now I had that momentum from Steeler. I was in a band that could prove a box office draw. And so that's what's important. And the bottom line is the receipts at the box office. So I quickly try to put together something without really having enough working fundamental knowledge of who the people are in LA. So I didn't really screen very carefully. I got introduced to a keyboard player, Vince Gilbert, and he looked like a little like Greg Giuffria. I look a little like Punky Meadows. Let's put together something that's kind of like, he's keyboard. So I said, how about like Angel meets Judas Priest? What a concept. It's okay. That sounds great. And we kind of settled somewhere in the middle, sounding a little like Uriah Heep, which is fine by me. That's one of my favorite bands. But the other members he brought in, I got the drummer from the Greg Leon band, the singer. I don't remember where we got the singer from. Guitar player came as a personal recommendation from a friend of mine. And I wanted to get away from the Yngwie stuff. Okay, because right after Steeler, I also I was being contacted by all these up and coming hot guitarist pistoleros. Like, oh my God, you played with Yngwie. Can we get a band together? And I met some really great people. Chris Impellitteri is a fantastic guitar player. He and I jammed for a little bit, like that. But I wanted to get away from a million notes like that. And it's not all about the guitar thing. I want songs. I want stuff that's about the songs that people will remember. So when I put Sin together, we're rehearsing. We weren't called Sin at first. I said, okay, we got to figure out what we're going to call ourselves. And I suggested Sin. And they went, no. They're all against it. They said, that was a band you had in Jersey. This is a new band. There's the first ego strike right there. Okay, they're threatened territorially because of another name. I said, I'll tell you what. Listen, this thing's based around me. All right. So you haven't proven yourself at the box office. I have. I hate to put it that way, but I'll give you 2 weeks. All right. Let's be fair. I'll give you 2 weeks. If you can't come up with a good band name that describes who we are, then it's going to be Sin. The 2 weeks came and went. Nothing. I said, all right, Sin. So they were against it from the start. 6 months later, they tried to kick me out of the band and steal the name. They didn't want to give it up. So interesting there. Again, to go back to your thing about the egos, that's exactly what happened in the band. We started out headlining. They didn't have to start out playing 8 o'clock at night into an empty house. Troubadour calls me up and says, or I said, I want to book a show there. and they're like, well, who are you? I said, well, I just sold out your club like a couple of months ago. I said I was with Steeler. And they went, oh, okay. Who do you want to open? Who do you want to close? So we got kind of ushered in very nicely that way. And these guys didn't have to work for it. It was kind of handed to them, So within 6 months of starting to, we were kind of like, we had the same kind of buzz about us that Guns N' Roses did when they were first coming up. I put together this new band and it was hot and we're really good and we're getting on really great bills, good shows. We played with Armored Saint and Odin, all the hometown guys that everybody loved. So we were getting really good shows and headlining some other stuff. 6 months later, these guys want to kick me out of the band and steal the name. So there again, there's the ego thing like that, and we were in the middle of recording what would be our first album. And we had a fight in the studio. This is like before Spinal Tap. It was so stupid, and it was a Spinal Tap type of a fight. And I had enough of it. And I walked out to the engineer room. I said to Bill Matoyer from Metal Blade Records, I said, Bill, I apologize. This is not professional. And I'm really sorry, but I've had it up to here. And I walked out. I quit. I just walked out on my own fucking project. And they continued on trying to use the name Sin. And then now it became confusing in the clubs because you have two Sins. And a lot of people remember in Music Connection magazine, the letters section, back and forth every week. There was this battle going on over the name. And I had service marked the name, so I had the rights to it. And they didn't care. They were still calling it Sin. I tried to change the shape of the logo until I got a hold of, I was introduced to Ronnie Dio's attorney, Stan Diamond, over in West LA. And Stan stepped in and words were said and they dropped the name and they changed it to Jaguar. So here we are decades later, and Vince and I are talking again. And Jaguar has a re-release of their album Made in Heaven coming out on F&A Records very shortly. And he asked me if I'd like to be involved. I said, would you like me to write some liner notes? He says, yeah. I said, well, just understand that I have a very good memory of how things went down. I said, you may not like some of the things that are in there, but they're still the truth. And they may ruffle some feathers and bruise some egos. He goes, I don't care. Write whatever you want. I said, all right, as long as I got your blessing on that. And I did. And I wrote liner notes, and the story of, you can't have Jaguar without telling the story of sin, because that's where Jaguar came out of. So like that. And they accepted it the way I wrote it. There was no re-editing or anything like that. And each of the members who have something to do with the band also put in their own liner notes about the various songs, things like that. My song "On the Run" is on there. There's the picture disc version with the record that was shaped like a snake. There's that version, and then there's the Jaguar version. So at least it's represented fairly, to two different versions. There's the one with my bass playing, and there's the one with the other guy's bass playing on it. Like
That's
that.
nice. That's good.
Yeah. So, at least they buried the hatchet, all except the singer, Art. He sent a really nasty, I'm told, he sent a really nasty letter to the president of FNA Records, and he did not want to cooperate with the project. So he said, all right, well, we're moving on without you. Like that. So, I mean, his picture's on there, his singing's on there, but he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, tough titties.
Got a chance to have a little notoriety a long time later, and you're just gonna stick to somebody because of whatever. I mean, It's been a long freaking time. It wasn't like yesterday.
But in getting to meet with and talk to Steve at FNA Records, that opens now a possible channel for me to find a place where I can re-release some of my Sin stuff and my Thunderball stuff, like a Rik Fox anthology kind of a thing. So it'll be a little bit of each band. And Thunderball, the fans have been asking me, when are you going to release this? When are you going to release that? I have this stuff on tape, and tape gets old. It needs to be kind of like re-engineered or brought up to speed and quality. And the bass needs to be beefed up a little bit because it's kind of, a little too trebly. So whatever that needs to be done quality-wise, I would like to have done, but I need to be there and oversee it so I can point out what needs to be done where at what spot, like that. And if I can get those ducks lined up in a row, then maybe I could get, FNA to be interested in releasing some of my stuff and get that out there as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're always looking for vinyl for sure. So that's I think that's such a big popular thing all of a sudden. So at least a couple of us are. Alan's not a big vinyl guy, but Dennis and I are. Dennis wasn't able to be here tonight. So
yeah. Well, whatever the format, if I could just find an opportunity to get my ducks in a row to get this stuff out, that would be great. But now I'm in Missouri. So it's like, okay, how do I get this done? I'm not in LA anymore.
Well, you're not far from Nashville, and then everybody and his brothers is there in Nashville too. So,
well, Nashville was one of the places we were considering to look at, and right now there goes Hurricane Ida is visiting. So we're glad not to be in Nashville right now, but
yeah,
I mean, we drove there for the Rockin' Pod, and that was almost an 8-hour drive. So it's not that convenient for me to go to Nashville to engineer tapes. It would have to be a flying thing. It's not in the budget right this second.
I understand. Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that at some point you had been hanging out with Eric Carr. I assume that you guys had some sort of friendship.
Yes, we did. I met Eric Carr outside the Palladium in New York City. The 1980 was the week when Kiss was doing the rehearsals at the Palladium for what would be that first tour with Eric, since he just joined. And my friend Randy Paul from Jersey, he was sitting. Eric was sitting on the hood of a car on the street behind the Palladium, and I came down there to meet them or something. And I'm walking up. And I could see Eric, he's sitting there with his black curly hair sitting on the car. And at that point, his character was still considered that hawk, the yellow and black bird thing, whatever his character was, some kind of hawk.
That monstrosity.
Right. And then, so I walk up and Randy goes, "Hey, Eric, I want you to meet a really good friend of mine, Rik Fox, Eric Carr." And his expression Eric had on his face, like he was in thought, just the way Blackie did when I mentioned WASP. And he had this, he looked up and thought, and he goes, "Rik Fox, huh?" He goes, "That's a pretty cool name." Like that. And by the end of the week, his character was now a fox. So he's not alive anymore to confirm or deny that, if that's what influenced him to go from a hawk to a fox. Because he was just so stuck on my name. and telling me how cool of a name that was. Rik Fox. He goes, that just sounds like a rock star name, you know? So it's anybody's guess. I don't even remember if I asked him about that, but that's how we met, and we stayed friends. And so when we were in LA, and we hung out at the Roxy to see Steeler, and he says, there's a girl that that you're friends with. Could you introduce me to her? I'd really like to meet her. And I said, sure. And I introduced him to this girl, and he wound up becoming a couple for a while. They were a boyfriend girlfriend thing. That girl happens to be somebody whose life I saved a few months earlier. And she wound up becoming the model on the cover of the Poison album, Open Up and Say Ah. It's with the hair and the big long tongue, and she's going, ah. Mm-hmm. Her name is Virginia Haas. She went by the name Bambi back then. And she came to see all my shows. She was a good friend. And that's who I fixed Eric Carr up with, was with Bambi. And she went out with him for a while. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. So that's what kind of came out of the night at the Roxy, besides, seeing Steeler.
Wow. You got just a full of stories, man.
Yeah, well, I've been referenced as kind of like the Forrest Gump of rock and roll because I'm in all of these key places at the key times. I didn't have to run Forrest Run, but I was just, I was meeting so many people. I was at the Palladium all the time because I had a friend who's her uncle was one of the guys that worked the follow spots up at in the lighting crew for the Palladium. So she could get in free all the time. So she brought me in as a guest. So I was in the front row for Hart. I was in the front row for Pat Travers with Pat Thrall, which I brought that up when I met Pat after the Steelers show with Hughes Thrall. And he remembered me like that. So I got, Cheap Trick, Stars. I got to see all these bands for free, at the Palladium like that. So, and I guess I stood out from the crowd. I didn't look like a regular fan. I looked like somebody. So the Stars took time to talk to me, and then I dated a girl who was a receptionist at the record plant in New York City. So and she knew everybody.
Sure.
And nobody, you couldn't impress her. She was like, okay, you're Joe Rockstar, you're Joe Rockstar, you're Joe Rockstar, like that. And I got to hung out with Steve Tyler, Steve Perry, Joe Perry, Alice Cooper's band. When they left Alice Cooper, they were called $1 Billion Babies, and they were recording their first album, Battle Axe, at the record plant. And Stars was there. Jack Douglas, engineered Stars and Aerosmith. So I got to meet all these famous people: Patti Smith, Letty Kay, like that. And Cheap Trick was on everybody's lips at the record plant. They had the buzz like that. And I was a band from Jersey called Trigger that I wound up working with because their producer had me come in to listen to them in the studio. And I was coming up with costume ideas and visuals and things like that. I wound up doing lights for them. And then in New York City, we had Max's, which was where I started. My debut was at Max's, a legendary club. I played CBGB's. And then later there was another club called Great Gildersleeves, a few doors up from CBGB's. And a lot of beginning bands who just got their first album out that were touring would use this club like to warm up or just passing through. First touring acts would come through there, and I wound up doing the lights for tons of bands in there. So that's how I got to meet a lot of people. I worked with Thor. I worked with Face Dancer. Jesus, I can't remember. It's an endless list of bands. So I kind of just started becoming known by a lot of people. That's kind of how it happens. I was working for Thor, come to speak of Thor. And at one point, he was going to be produced by mountain bassist Felix Pappalardi, one of my idols. So Felix comes down to Gildersleeves one night to watch Thor's band play. I'm doing lights. And I got to meet, actually, and this is a big deal for me. It's one of my influences. I'm going gaga. It's Felix fucking Pappalardi, producer of Cream, bass player of Mountain. And we're talking like we're talking now. Felix turns around to me and goes, it's guys like you to help keep me young. It's what he, gave me that kind of a compliment. So that was kind of neat. And of course, a few months later, his wife killed him. So it comes and goes, these moments, that's kind of how it happens. After Angel played one of their shows in Manhattan, they went out for dinner. I went up coming to the restaurant they were at, and I had a scrapbook with pictures of me with bands that I played in. And I was showing them to Punky. Punky's wife comes over. She's looking at the pictures. She's going, Punky, I don't remember you in these pictures. Where was this at? Punky goes, that's not me. That's him. She goes, no, that's you. She goes, no. He goes, no, that's Rick. It's not me. I mean, that's how much I look like Punky. His own wife was thought it was fooled, So it's just little bits of the stories that would happen. New York City used to have a rock and roll convention in Manhattan. And I would always go to the rock and roll conventions. And it was, photographers selling pictures from concerts, memorabilia, swag, things like that. Richie Rano from Stars had a table. A lot of photographers I knew. I meet some of these photographers actually at the concert. They're pushing up behind me. And I'm in the front, second, third row, whatever, trying to get pictures. So I would move aside and I would help the photographer kind of share my seat so he could get a better shot. And then later I'd see them at the conventions and they'd give me copies of the pictures, stuff like it, whatever. I was handing a bottle of blackberry brandy up to Frank Domino during one of the songs when Angel was on stage, and you could clearly see my hand with all my rings and my jewelry and everything like that. And I had a copy of it. It's like that, Mark Weiss guy, the photographer, renowned photographer. He was starting out back then. We were hanging out at the clubs and the conventions back then. We're still friends to this day. So these are, again, a little bits of stories that come out.
Cool. You need to write a book.
I started to years ago, and it's been a work in progress. I've been a little lazy and I went away from it. My computer is only something I can work on at home. It's not online. It's also outdated. There's no upgrading you can do for it. So I could just use the word processor and just add and subtract and edit that way until I can find a way to work further with it. But yeah, I started a book. My dad told me before he died, he goes, write a book, use a lot of pictures. You don't have to talk too much. But there's so many stories.
Yeah.
The book could be like this thick. And I'm in the process of reading Bob Daisley's book, and it's pretty thick. So
cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd like to actually. The thing is, writing a book, every time you sit down, if you're finished with something new comes along. Now you have to add that to the book. So it's an ongoing story.
Yeah, it's hard to put it's hard to put a beginning and an end to it. That's for sure.
It is, and a lot of friends of mine in the business who write books, I have to read what they've written so I can see how they begin and end it, because it's an ongoing story. I don't know if it's like the guitar player goes in the studio and he's never fully happy with the solo he plays on the song. He keeps going, I'll get it this time. I'll get it this time, man. And he just should have kept what he did the first time. You're never happy with that solo because you think you can always do it better. That's kind of might be with the book writing process.
For sure. Well, Rick, thanks for hanging out with us for a while tonight. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. It's you guys out there, the people who reach out to the artists and want to have interviews and talk about stuff, and you keep us popular, you keep us in the public eyes and ears, and we appreciate that. I salute you for it. We'd be lost without you guys. A lot of us in the 80s who are trying to make the comebacks and stay relevant. It's guys like you and all the Rock and Pod shows that have the interest and want to know a little bit more than what's commonly known. So we appreciate everything you do to keep us out there in the public eye.
Great. Well, it was great having you on. So thank you very much. Where can people find Rik Fox information?
Well, I'm on Facebook mostly. I don't have any other. I really don't have time for many other formats and platforms to be on. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. Facebook takes too much of my time anyway, as it is.
It's definitely a time suck.
Yeah, and then I have a website. It's rickfoxbase.wix.com/Rik Fox. Like that. I think Wix may have changed the title of it, but that's what I usually use to go to it at. It's Wix, WIX. My friend Steve Halbert helped me put that together, and I'm not really on my own website that often, but that's pretty much where you can see a lot of the past stuff and some things I'm doing. I don't know if I recorded a couple of songs on an album by a guy named Jim Crane, I was on a couple of tracks with Vinny Appice and Frank Domino, like that. And he's gonna put these albums out with all these big A-list stars on them. Carmine Appice and Jim Crane's like the voice of the Drum Wars for Carmine and Vinny. So he has all these big stars come in and play these albums. Everybody comes in and does a guest spot. So I think I might have had that on my website. That's kind of one of the last recordings I've done. I got contacted by another guy out of Norway, and I can't. I know his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. He just asked me if I would like to record on one of his projects as well. He's got another guy with a lot of big stars. So I got to start gathering this stuff and putting it on my website like that. But the Facebook and my Wix website are the only two right now, and I've got a Reverb Nation page, Rik Fox Reverb Nation.
Cool.
So
great.
I got songs on there.
All right. Well, hang on just a second. Alan's going to take us out of here.
Folks, y'all know the deal. Visit us on agesofrock.com. Check out our social media and past episodes. And until next time, peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.